So, possible movement in Europe later this week. Let's bring in Matteo Renzi. He's the former Italian Prime Minister. Thank you so much, Prime Minister, for joining us here on the program. You're currently in my studio in London, and of course I'm here in Riyadh, but a lot of conversations around perhaps, creating peace deals here in the Middle East, normalizing relations with the Saudis and Israel, but all eyes also on what could potentially happen in Turkey, in Istanbul on Thursday. Volodymyr Zelensky has put this almost challenge to Vladimir Putin, and frankly, it's unlikely that Vladimir Putin will make it there to Istanbul in a few days' time.
I'm here to control your studio. You check your office here in London. But jokes apart, I think two very important issues. The first is about Ukraine. Something changed after the meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky in Vatican, with the support of Prime Minister Starmer and President Macron during the funeral of the Pope Francis. And now, finally, we see some signals of lights. I don't think there will be a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. Lavrov will lead the Russian delegation, probably. Rubio, the American delegation, but I think is a very important step in the direction of diplomacy and peace. And about Middle East, of course, you cover very well the historical visit of President Trump. I prefer President Trump who sign agreement to the President Trump who sign executive order about tariffs, because the President Trump who create cooperation achieved success. I think today is a great success for Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, because finally everyone recognized the strategy of a Vision 2030 and the role of Saudi Arabia. As Mark said, the elephant in the room is the Palestinian question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get to that with you in a moment in terms of the situation in the Middle East, because, of course, you know Mohammed bin Salman quite well. You also know Vladimir Putin. Do you think that Vladimir Putin is serious about resolving the war in Ukraine, putting the guns down, and eventually coming to some kind of face-to-face meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky, even if it doesn't happen this week?
I think Vladimir Putin, as I know, is a man able to check the relation of power, check of the counterpart. I don't think he will have the meeting in this week. I hope maybe I will do some mistakes, but I think now the way for the peace is ready. So I don't know if this peace will arrive after a meeting between Putin and Trump, or Putin and Trump and Zelensky. I don't know what type of framework will guarantee the peace and the diplomacy. But I think now is interest also for Russia to close the long war. And about bin Salman, I think is a leader who show concretely Middle East is changed thanks to him, to his leadership. And so I think today is a great day also for him, because independently from the money, which is important, of course, but the most important thing is the presence of a lot of CEOs, American CEOs in Saudi, as one of the key countries in the new world.
Yeah, and Prime Minister, there is no doubt that this country has transformed and changed at lightning speed, frankly, in the last few years, especially. And while the focus of this summit, as everyone knew, would be on investment, economic security, big deals, big business leaders here in the country from the United States meeting their Saudi counterparts. As you say, the big question mark is around the Palestinian issue, which was just slightly touched on during President Trump's speech. Do you think behind closed doors, and you know Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince, do you think he would have mentioned it, discussed it with President Trump, especially around the issue of normalization?
I think there is not possibility to save Middle East without a long and clear and strong solution for Palestinian question. But I think there is not possibility to have the peace in Gaza with the presence in the leadership of Hamas. That is a very complicated point, because that is the only thing really, again, open. If you think about 10 years ago, Middle East 10 years ago was absolutely worse than today. A lot of things are changed and in the good direction. The GCC countries today are stronger and closer, and they play a role very important in the international framework. The only problem will remain, in my opinion, is the situation in Gaza, but it's impossible to have a control of Palestine without an Arabic leadership, but that have to be without Hamas. And that is the last point and the most difficult point to choose. I believe Mohammed bin Salman, but also Tamim al-Thani, but also Sheikh Mohammed in Emirates want to solve and fix the situation, but the presence of Hamas is the last problem to solve.
Yeah, indeed. Matteo Renzi, former Prime Minister of Italy, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. You can look after my studio there while I'm away.
Thank you so much. Good evening.